Listening Fill in the Blanks.
Let's start.
Successful cosmetic alteration requires chemical processes that alter the normal structure of the hair shaft. Harrison and Sinclair, 2004. For a permanent change in the hair, the chemical reaction of coloring, perming, or straightening must occur in the cortex. Bleaching, perming, and straightening alter the physical properties of hair. The F layer is removed with any chemical procedure, and the internal disulfide bonds of the cortex are broken in hair styling with permanent waves. Excessive or repeated chemical treatment, poor grooming habits, and environmental exposure produce changes in hair texture, and if extreme can result in hair breakage. There are human factors for environmental imbalances. Prominent among them are a growing population giving rise to more human needs and consumerist tendencies. Both of these have an impact on natural resources, and the sustainable capacity of the country is shrinking. Cutting of trees, land mines, misuse of water and atmospheric pollution are serious threats to the environment. All these factors have led to increase in natural disasters.
A disaster can be defined as a tragic event, such as an accident, fire, terrorist attack or explosion, which inflicts damage on its victims. A natural disaster is a natural risk or hazard caused by the Earth's natural processes with terrible economic, humanitarian and environmental consequences. It causes a large-scale loss of life and property. So many people lose their lives during a natural upheaval, and for those who are left out homeless having lost their near and dear ones, life becomes a daily struggle for survival.
A natural disaster manifests itself in the shape of several natural hazards such as avalanches, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, landslide, floods, tsunamis, storms, blizzards, droughts, etc. These calamities wreak unbearable destruction. Human vulnerability and lack of proper planning and disaster management practices compound the woes of people, with grave implications in terms of the economic, humanitarian and environmental costs. When a natural disaster strikes, it wreaks unimaginable loss of lives on the earth. It destroys everything in a moment. Pollutants respect no borders. Transboundary pollution is the movement of contaminants across political borders, whether by air, rivers, or ocean currents. The 8 circumpolar nations, led by the Finnish Initiative of 1989, established the Arctic Environmental Protection Strategy, EEPS, in which participants have agreed to develop an Arctic Monitoring and Assessment Program, AMAP. AMAP establishes an international scientific network to monitor the current condition of the Arctic with respect to specific contaminants. This monitoring program is extremely important because it will give a scientific basis for understanding the scope of the problem.
Certainly, any prospective time travelers may have to overcome more physical and logical hurdles than merely overtaking the speed of light. One such problem, posited by René Barjavel in his 1943 text Le Voyageur Imprudent, is the so-called grandfather paradox. Barjavel theorized that, if it were possible to go back in time, a time traveler could potentially kill his own grandfather. If this were to happen, however, the time traveler himself would not be born, which is already known to be true. In other words, there is a paradox in circumventing an already known future. Time travel is able to facilitate past actions that mean time travel itself cannot occur.
We know from research that the reading circuit is not given to human beings through a genetic blueprint like vision or language. It needs an environment to develop further. It will adapt to that environment's requirements, from different writing systems to the characteristics of whatever medium is used. If the dominant medium advantages processes that are fast, multitask-oriented and well-suited for large volumes of information, like the current digital medium, so will the reading circuit. As UCLA psychologist Patricia Greenfield writes, the result is that less attention and time will be allocated to slower, time-demanding deep reading processes.
Towards the end of the 20th century, the government realized that, due to limits on both the size of the country's workforce and its land area, its labor-intensive industries were becoming increasingly uncompetitive. So an economic committee was established which concluded that Singapore should focus on developing as a service center and seek to attract company headquarters to serve Southeast Asia and develop tourism, banking, and offshore activities. The land required for this service sector orientation had been acquired in the early 1970s, when the government realized that it lacked the banking infrastructure for a modern economy.
In that moment, Rita and Jake stumbled across an interesting set of differences between older and younger minds. Popular psychology says that as people age, their brains slow down. The implication, of course, is that elderly men and women are not as mentally agile as middle-aged adults or even teenagers. However, although certain brain functions such as perception and reaction time do indeed take longer, that slowing down does not necessarily undermine mental sharpness. Indeed, evidence shows that older people are just as mentally fit as younger people, because their brains compensate for some kinds of declines in creative ways that young minds do not exploit. Excellence does not emerge without appropriate help. To reach an exceptionally high standard in any area, very able children need the means to learn, which includes material to work with and focus challenging tuition and the encouragement to follow their dream. There appears to be a qualitative difference in the way the intellectually highly able think, compared with more average ability or older pupils, for whom external regulation by the teacher often compensates for lack of internal regulation. To be at their most effective in their self-regulation, all children can be helped to identify their own ways of learning, metacognition, which will include strategies of planning, monitoring, evaluation, and choice of what to learn.
Like, share, subscribe the channel, and press the bell icon for further updates.